People who noped right out of a friendship. What was your breaking point with that friend? Story 1. So we had this project together back in high school for our law class project. Ours was on criminal law. The project was worth 30% of our grade. I was heavily involved in musical theater, so I told her, give me all the work you want me to do. I'll do it for you by Thursday. But after that, I have commitments to theater. It's tech week, so I can't do any work. She agreed. She gave me 3 sections to complete. She had 3 sections, and so did our other friend. Thursday came, and I submitted all of my work and uploaded it to the PowerPoint. I was done. I got a text on Sunday, the project was due Tuesday, and she told me that she needed me to do another part. When I asked why, she said the other girl just didn't want to do it, so I had to. I got mad and said, I already told you I couldn't after Thursday, and she said the stupidest thing. When life throws you lemons, you have to be wearing your protective gear so it doesn't knock you onto the ground. I got even more mad and was like, fine, I'll have it done for tomorrow. So I stayed up really late during tech week doing this other girl's work. I sent the lemon excuse girl my work and then uploaded it to the PowerPoint. The day of the presentation came, and we got to the part with the work I did on Sunday. I noticed everything was spelled wrong. She edited my work and misspelled everything that I had. So for example, when I placed when the lawyer meets the judge, she replaced it with when the lawyer meets the judge. People started laughing at her spelling mistakes and it lowered our mark. She also moved my work and gave it a different heading. I did a part on the Criminal Code of Canada and she changed the heading to How to Become a Judge. I was so mad. I confronted her about it and her excuse was, well, you had to get ready with that lemon gear and you weren't. We weren't friends after that. I wonder how the ex-friend's lemon gear would have protected her if the original work had been submitted to the teacher. Story 2. I had 3 roommates during my freshman year of college. Me, Emily, Hannah, and Danielle. Names changed here. Danielle and I automatically clicked, and it was great. I got along really well with Hannah, but there was quick tension between Emily and me. Emily was super neat and clean. I'm a bit of a clutterbug. Regardless, I respected the fact that we had shared space, and I kept such spaces clean. Except every now and then, there would be trash left out or dirty dishes. Small things at first that then became larger and more frequent. Emily blamed me since I was the messy one. She would flat out yell at me about it. I wasn't the one doing it, but I didn't know who was. I was really struggling with my anxiety disorder at the time, and I would literally sit in my room and cry because I didn't know what to do. The living situation became so toxic and full of anger. Danielle would always comfort me and talk about how much of a she-devil Emily was. I was very shy and never had many friends, so I clung to Danielle as my one confident support system. Things escalated all year. One day, Emily's entire bottle of expensive shampoo was emptied out in the shower. Another day, someone had deliberately swept handfuls of crumbs underneath her door. It was ridiculous. She and I ended up having a screaming match at each other during finals week before we all moved out for the summer. Neither of us could come to terms with one another. Anyway, it was like July, and I was texting Danielle, and she told me she had something really funny to tell me. And she tells me that it was her the whole time. She told me she hated Emily and she wanted to play a prank on her, so she was the one causing all the issues. She honestly thought it was funny, even though she'd watched me have anxiety attacks all year over all of it. She also said she wanted to make sure I was close friends with her and not our other roommates because she didn't want to lose me. Yeah, I basically dropped the friendship real quick after that. I still think about the entire situation and how crazy and childish it was. I'm also a bit ashamed that it took me until that moment to really step back and see how horribly she treated people. She still sometimes messages me and asks, why did we grow so far apart? Yeah, it's because you're insane. Emily and I are pretty good friends now, by the way. She and I are going to be bridesmaids at Hannah's wedding on Saturday. Story 3. She got angry at me and demanded an apology. I didn't know what I'd done, plus she had raging, crazy pregnancy hormones. I asked what it was for and she told me I knew what I'd done and she wouldn't speak to me again until I apologized. At the time, I was crushed, but as the days and weeks passed, I began to see how toxic she was. I found new hobbies, life moved on. In hindsight, I'm glad she ended our friendship. Life is a lot better without her. Anyway, I'm pretty sure she was angry I didn't get excited enough over a $6,000 crib she was thinking about buying for the baby. I just couldn't get excited about a $6,000 piece of furniture that would be used for 2 or 3 years at most. The crib was just a crib. It didn't convert into a toddler bed or day bed. It wasn't even handmade by an Amish carpenter who bathed in water from a Tibetan spring or something like that. It was made in China, and it was sold in a store that specializes in overpriced crap for people who have no financial skills. Story 4. I had a friend who, as I was beginning to realize, was a bit toxic. She'd call me up and never really have anything to say, so I'd do the talking, which I found hard. When we were in the company of others, she'd ridicule me for the littlest of things. I stayed friends with her because we'd been friends for so long, rather than because I liked her or that she even liked me. It was a friendship of convenience. One day, she asked me to be her +1 at a homeware show after she won a free entry to a competition. I'd given up my day to go to this thing on the other side of town, even though I really didn't want to go. But my friend didn't want to be alone, so I went with her. We watched the show. It was kind of boring and not my style, but it was an interesting diversion. Every audience member had been given a lucky door ticket. The prize was a $1,000 voucher at a department store. As we took our seats, my friend turned to me and said, "You'd better give me your ticket if they call your number." I thought she was joking, and so I snickered a little. Then I thought to myself, this is a moot point because I never win anything. At the end of the show, they drew the ticket. They called my number. I went up and they asked for my details and said they'd be in touch once they'd made the voucher in my name. I went back to my friend and she said, "I'd split it with you 50-50, but I can't afford that, so how about I give you $250? I couldn't believe it. She was serious. It was dumb luck that she won a ticket to the show at all, and then dumb luck that I'd won the door prize. How could she say she couldn't afford it? It cost her nothing. It was all a gain. Anyway, it took a week or two for the department store to contact me and say they had my voucher. I quietly traveled back to the other side of town, collected my prize, and never spoke to my friend again. The toxic friendship is over. I have never missed her. If it were me, I'd say the winner keeps loot but buys dinner and drinks when we leave. If you think that woman is toxic, brace yourself for the girl in story 6. She's complicated. Story 5. She called my then boyfriend and me over for her cultural holiday and then again for her husband's birthday. I usually have people over for Christmas, but my mom was on bed rest, but I was running the house and taking care of her for 3 months. But this so-called friend kept asking when I was having them over, so despite all that was going on with my mom, I called them over Christmas week. I couldn't cook but did order in. During the evening, she said, "This is a lovely evening, but don't forget, you still owe us one more dinner since you came over to ours twice." A month later, I got her a jumper for her birthday, and she called to say it was too big. I said okay, and would return it for another size, but it will take time because of my mom. She said she would go and return it, and I said, "Well, you don't have the invoice, so it wouldn't work." She goes anyway with a bunch of her birthday presents she wants to return. Then she calls to say the store said the jumper I got her was showing a lower price. The store was on sale by then, and needed the invoice. She kept calling me to check when I was going to collect the jumper and replace it, and at one point, she said she would keep it and that she would one day wear it when she put on weight. I got so tired of the whole thing that I went and got a gift card from a different store for the amount she had approximately spent on my birthday gift. She clearly wouldn't rest till I'd spent as much as she had, or she believed I'd spent that much. I collected the jumper, gave her the gift card, and ghosted her till she stopped calling. Story 6. When I entered university, I ended up going to the same school as my best friend from high school. We were both kind of nerdy loners at a small high school, pushed together more by a shared lack of interest in anyone else than any real meshing of personalities. It was thus unsurprising when I entered a university filled with 100 plus other dorky math people that I found some people I liked and got along well with. As it happened, one of the people from my new class lived on the same floor as this high school bestie of mine. Happily, his room became the spot to congregate and be dorks. I had the great pleasure of being able to hang out with my old friend and my new friends at the same time, and she seemed to get along with them all so well. It was the best. Over the semester, however, she withdrew. People from my class in the dorm floor would gather and hang out, and she stopped showing up. I'd go down the hall to knock on her door and invite her along, and she'd tell me she was busy with homework and maybe she'd come by later. A couple of times I suggested she was working too hard, but she responded pretty badly to that, so I left it alone, always with a smile and a promise that she was welcome to come by whenever she was finished. I never saw her after the beginning of November of that first semester. Being rebuffed every time I went to see her led to me no longer stopping by. It wasn't even that I didn't want to see her, it was just very obvious, or so I thought, that I was disturbing her. Christmas holidays came and went, and around New Year's Day, I got a long-winded email from her, my first contact with her in months. It was a rant about how terrible a friend I was, abandoning her the way I had in a new and scary place to go hang out with my new friends. She complained about how I didn't care about her and how it hurt her that I would abandon her so readily, like I was just waiting for an excuse to leave her behind. Yeah, no, that's not what happened, and she knew it. I responded with a short, pointed reminder that I'd gone to see her every time I was in the building for the entire month of October, and she told me to leave her alone. Every time. The response I got was, and I quote, "You should have known that I wanted you to stay when I asked you to leave me alone. I only told you to leave because I was hurting." I guess I'm supposed to be psychic. I've spoken to her a total of a half dozen times in the decades since. Story 7. I had a broke friend and a rich guy friend. We went to a 3-day music festival. I fronted the money for the group and they both agreed to pay me back. My poor friend helps his parents pay their bills by working at a grocery store, while the rich friend gets everything from mom and dad for free. Car paid up front, college paid up front, etc. My poor friend cashed his next 2 paychecks to pay me back as soon as he possibly could, and he worked 70-hour weeks to do it. The rich friend, who had a job, started giving me half-used gift cards as payment over the course of a month or two. It was so bad that I had to create a spreadsheet to track the money he owed me. Eventually, I put my foot down and said no more BS and to just pay me back all at once. 9 months later, I got my money. I cut him off and I'm still good friends with my poor friend. 2 years later, the rich ex-friend visited me at work and asked me if I wanted to hang out after my shift. I decided I would try to give him another chance, so I said okay. After work, I showed up at his place, and he and his mother were outside gardening. He rushed me into his house, brought me upstairs to his room, and handed me a screwdriver, saying he needed me to help dismantle and rebuild his desk downstairs in his new room before his mom was done gardening. I was visibly angry with him, and he promised me he would buy me a beer and food later. Well, it turns out he's even more of a dirtbag than I thought, because at dinner he asked me, "Do you want me to pay for this?" I stood up, walked out of the restaurant, and left him at the table. I drove him there. Best feeling ever. I guess that is why this dude is rich. He never pays for anything. If you like the videos that I post, show me some love and like this video. While you're at it, subscribe to my channel to keep updated. Story 8. I have my own place. It appears I only have friends when it is useful to others. I heard from someone for the first time in a while because he needs to store his stuff somewhere between moving out of one place and into another. Another friend wants to take my spare room. I have a 2-bedroom apartment because she doesn't want to live with her parents, but she's also not down to pay as much rent as is required. I regularly have people stop in without calling. They usually just want to smoke grass and can't do it at home or are on the way somewhere and want to stop in for a bowl. Some even bring friends. Saying no is being a bad friend, I have learned. Story 9. The dude would give anyone the shirt off his back and was a wonderful and loyal friend to me for a few years. But after I got out of a cruel relationship, he wouldn't stop strongly hinting that he was available within day 1 of me escaping it. Multiple times in a conversation, he'd do it. It all fell apart when I was having a particularly rough night and asked him to let me vent a little and just decompress. He did, and all was fine until I went to leave. He grabbed me into a tight hug and kept saying things like, "You know I'm here. I'm a good guy. I can treat you right if you'd consider me. I'll always be here. You know how I feel about you," and all that. After repeatedly and politely asking to be let go and get his face further from mine, he kissed me. It was maybe 3 days after I just got out of a 2-plus-year cruel relationship. That's the worst he's done, but I couldn't get over it. Story 10. One of my best friends since I was a kid and I used to always get into mischief together. We ended up in the hospital together, broke laws together, everything. Halfway through high school, I began thinking about my future and participating in extracurriculars. Since I also had a job at this point, to him, I was a dirtbag for ditching the group. And he consistently talked trash about me. I didn't take it personally since I knew he had some personal family matters he was going through. But when he sat my girlfriend down and told her that she was changing me in bad ways and not letting me live my life, even though she came after the job and extracurriculars, I realized he was holding me back and was done. Story 11. She threatened to end herself and tricked me into thinking she actually did, so I was about to call the cops. But before I could, they were called on me because she told them that I was trying to end myself. She completely lied and reversed the situation because she knew I was going to call the hotline or the police or whatever on her since it was the fourth time. So she turned it around on me to get their attention on me. They ended up checking my arms for self-harm, asking me if I took pills, and I was just so young. But why though? I'm confused. Story 12. A former friend was out of work for 6 weeks, but sent out some resumes and got hired at a new job. I was hanging out at his place a few days later and congratulated him on his new job. After maybe a single sentence about his new job, he immediately proceeded to go off on a random, ugly rant about all these lazy N-word in this country, all they want is a handout. Why can't they get off their sorry behinds and get a job? Excuse me, soon-to-be former friend. Weren't you just collecting unemployment checks for the last 6 weeks? Doesn't that count as a handout? I had heard this guy use racial slurs and random a few times in the past and sort of shrugged it off as random weirdness, but this long rant was my unmistakable signal to nope out of the friendship. Story 13. Her boyfriend, whom we became friends with through their friendship, posted in our friend group chat about struggling with depression and that he had to redo a year of college. In response, she wrote a long essay about what a lazy guy he was that would never amount to anything because he didn't try hard enough. This was one of many of the crazy nightmarish things she did, like call him 70+ times in 1 hour. My other friend and I realized that we liked him a lot more and that she was a cruel girl, so we dropped her. He's now one of my longest-lasting best friends, so it was the right choice. Story 14. I realized when speaking to my former best friend that anytime we'd talk on the phone, she was talking crap about someone in her close circle where she lives now. If it wasn't her boyfriend, it was a roommate. If it wasn't a roommate, it was her other friend. There was a roulette of about 5 people who were always troubling her, and I realized she never really cared to do anything about it because she liked having someone to complain about and feel victimized over. The last straw was when she pulled the same thing on me. I told her how I felt, and then I cut her off. She tries to be cool with me now to save face and look like the bigger person, but I mostly try to ignore her. People change, and 15 years can bring on a lot of change. Story 15. I had been friends with this group of people since my freshman year of high school. I did the whole growing up thing with them and continued the friendship into college. I would occasionally not get invited out, but no big deal. I'd hang out with other friends. My breaking point was a few days before my 21st birthday party. One of my friends has a birthday the day before mine, and for the 4th year in a row, I was invited to celebrate his birthday, neglecting mine. What rubbed the salt in that wound was the comment after. Oh, your birthday is the next day, right? I guess we can do yours too. Now, I'm not one to have to go all out for a birthday, but that was too much. I bent over backward to hang out with this group of friends, and I always felt like a second resort. I hung out one time after that and was still so put off, so I called it quits. I haven't seen or spoken to them in 4 years now. Story 16. There were a lot of things. My nature is to be a giver, and she was a taker. She never came to my place. She made me pick up food for her on my way to her place. Stuff like that. I got the feeling I was more convenient for her than someone she wanted to be emotionally close to. Anyway, I got pregnant, found out I was having a boy, and we announced the name. She told everyone, I found out about it secondhand, that I stole her baby name. Said person had no children and was not pregnant or trying to become pregnant. I inquired what name she said I supposedly stole, and she said she wanted to use the name Jack Psalm, and me to name my son, who was born and existed, something that starts with a J but is a real name that other humans have, isn't spelled creatively, and is a common boy name, was stealing her name of the son she may or may not have in the future. I ended up going no contact. She never asked me why or followed up. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy what's the crappiest way a friend has shown you they weren't really your friend. Story 4 is a shocker. See you on that video.